Yippee Ki Yay is a new stage production retelling the story of Die Hard. It's a one-man show. It's here through December 15th. We have Richard Marsh, the star of the show. Thank you so much for your time today.
Hi, thanks, Rudy. Thanks for having me.
How the show all came to be, because it was during the pandemic that you decided to write it. Is that correct?
That's right, yes. It was an idea I'd had for a while, a sort of procrastination project, I guess. A thing I've always planned to do and I never quite got round to. And during the second pandemic, I thought, surely this is the time to write that show, which is as full of love and life and comedy and action and silliness and joy as I can possibly write. So if we're back in theatres when the pandemic is over, I think that's what people are going to want to go and watch. And so I wrote this idea, and it comes from, I've always, since I started writing poetry, I've liked the idea of telling stories via poetry, which don't seem like they're necessarily poetry stories. So what's the opposite of poetry? An action movie. What is the greatest action movie? Obviously Die Hard. So then that is, like, to me, a funny contrast, the idea of telling Die Hard largely via poetry. And then the second funny contrast is me, my sort of bespectacled British face, playing, all-American hero John McClane. That was sort of fantastic for me too. And so I had two funny ideas. That's a good place to start. And then the task is sort of both finding all the kind of the humour and the joy in Die Hard itself, and then also finding the humanity within it, the emotion within it, and what story to tell alongside, because it was very important to me to tell a sort of more personal story alongside the story of Die Hard. So you get all of Die Hard. You get all of the action and the stunts and the characters that you love. But you also get the story of what it is to be a Die Hard fan as well, because one of the things I realised is that going back and looking at the movie again, in making my adaptation of it, my retelling of it, I realised that it hit me very differently now than it did when I first saw it as a teenager. So when I first saw it, it was like this hero kicking ass, right? That's the story to me. And looking at it now as a dad in midlife, what it strikes me as is the story of a marriage and the story of this couple who try to sort of meet each other again at Christmas. They like many couples, they argue. Unlike many couples, they cannot reconcile due to terrorist action. But then that's a story which a lot of us understand and know, right? Christmas is wonderful. Our families are great, but our families are hard. And so this kind of truth of, I think that's one of the reasons the film has lasted so long, is I think there's a truth to it and an emotional honesty to it that perhaps is not there in all Christmas movies. And so what I've tried to do is sort of tell the story of Die Hard while also telling the story of being a fan of Die Hard across your life. Because I do think there's kind of, like music you hear when you're 12 and you sort of have your first kiss or fail to have your first kiss, if you're the kind of guy who writes Die Hard as a poem, then that when you hear that music again in your 20s and in your 30s, it's going to hit differently each time, because it's not only what you're feeling now, but the echoes of the times you've heard it before. And I think that's what Die Hard has for me.
This has always been a big debate as far as, is this a Christmas movie? Is it not a Christmas movie? Obviously, as time has gone on, people have embraced it, as a holiday thing. But what's it like, being able to perform it, in the month of November, in the month of December, as people are getting ready for those, big holiday moments?
It's a great time to do it, certainly. And as we were chatting before you started recording, it's just started snowing in Chicago today. So it's sort of lovely, more Die Hard 2 weather than Die Hard, if anything. But I think, so going back to the great controversy of, is Die Hard a Christmas movie or not? For me, it clearly is. It's a Christmas movie I watch all year round. But I think perhaps the reason for that controversy is that there's an unspoken assumption maybe that a Christmas movie is a movie that you should be able to watch with your children. And I would not watch Die Hard with young children. My kids have not seen Die Hard yet. But I think that's the reason for the controversy. Is it great to perform it at this time of year? Absolutely, yes. We first did it in August at the Edinburgh Fringe when it was extremely the show plays great in the sunshine, but it's certainly lovely to play it around the time of year when people are coming on and kind of in their big coats and their jumpers, and one of the lovely things about the show here is people have already started turning up in their sort of Carl t-shirts and their kind of Nakatomi Tower Christmas party kind of t-shirts and sweatshirts, and that's a really lovely thing too.
Some of those iconic lines that we remember from the movie. I know this is a rewritten retelling, of the story, but do we get a little of those moments of some of those iconic lines that we're waiting for?
Yeah, you absolutely do. So I try to, when I decided to actually sit down and write this, I decided to write down all of my favourite things and favourite memories of Die Hard before I rewatched the film. So just sort of without doing research, what did I really care about? And all of those moments are in the show. I retell them. I do them in different ways or unexpected ways, or maybe different characters say things and you're expecting that it's going to be sort of delivered by. But yes, I think all of the, and honestly, part of the fun of watching the show, I think, and I've got to watch it now because there's another actor who also plays the role, Daryl Bailey, is you as the audience are complicit in the silliness and the theatricality of recreating these sort of big stunts with like one bloke and a stool on a stage, you know. And so it's a bit like when kids play pretend, you know, that sort of that thrill of when you're a child of you're like hiding behind a hedge and you're secretly kind of, you know, like fighting the dragon or whatever. And that sort of that joy and playfulness and play acting and pretend, right? And pretend is just much more manifest in the theatre than it is in the movie, which is more realistic, right? It looks like he's jumping off the roof. Well, we encourage you to believe that I'm jumping off the roof, but I'm on a stool. So, you know, but I think that playfulness is a thing which audiences really enjoy. I certainly.
Was there ever anything in your head as far as like, I want to make this an ensemble cast versus a one-man show, and what ultimately led you to decide to do it this way?
So I really liked the challenge of trying to do it with one actor, and I think there is a sort of, I think audience members sort of enjoy the kind of the feat of that. That you're switching between characters, you know, I'm sort of talking to one and talking to another, in different accents. The physicality hopefully is different. We've got a fantastic movement director, Emma Webb, who helped me try to move differently as the different characters, and we lean into things which are sort of very much for the fans, and while also telling the story for people who haven't seen it before. But for example, Carl, the sort of my favorite henchman of Hans Gruber in the movie, he was a Bolshoi ballerina. He's a Russian guy. And so we really lean into that and have fun with ballet in the show. It's very silly. I mean, I hopefully we'll get a chance to have a chat if you come and see it next week.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what you think about it when you get to see it. But yeah, to me, that kind of the challenge of doing it as one person was an important, fun part of it.
Well, lots of fun here. We're so glad you're in Chicago. You're here through December 15th at the Broadway Playhouse, BroadwayInChicago.com for those tickets. Go ahead and check out Yippee Ki Yay. Richard, thank you so much for your time today. Happy holidays, and we will see you there very, very soon.
Thank you. Happy trails, Rudy.
Thank you.